Hey, what's up guys, it's your boy Stiff Socks, and today we're going to see if we can beat Dark Souls 3 only using a torch. I chose the Pyromancy class because I feel that he is in tune with the torches because of the fire and whatnot. And after a quick jog to the first boss, no, you cannot beat Dark Souls 3 only using a torch because you gotta beat Mr. Gundyr here first. Then you can buy one afterwards. Also in the last video, this was the random comment that got picked to get the Alexander Warrior Jar model, and I would say your name out loud, but I am recording this before I actually picked a comment, but I'm sure your name would sound great if I said it out loud. Anyway, just like the video and leave a comment if you want a chance to get one yourself. And right after I bought my torch, I wondered if I can dual wield them, and you actually can, so spooky dark caves better watch out because I am lighting them up very effectively now. You could also upgrade them with Titanite shards, but I didn't have any yet, so I ran around for a while to get as many as I could. And while doing that, I died to this man many times, even though the torch has the power to make him bust it down funky style every single time you hit him. But after defeating him, he drops a Titanite shard, I upgrade my torch, and then I head to the first boss. And despite him being icy, he's actually not weak to fire, and if it wasn't obvious, the torch does do fire damage. Doesn't matter though, because I still clapped those frosty cheeks on my very first attempt. The torch's light attack damage does leave a lot to be desired, but I was actually surprised with how much damage you do with a charged heavy attack. And since I've been playing a lot of Dark Souls 2 lately, I forgot how much faster this game is and how much more violent the bosses are in general, and it had my heart beat a little irregular. Anyways, all you really have to do is just roll into any of his attacks, smack him once or twice, and then run away and rinse and repeat until you get to the second phase. And the second phase is actually really easy, as long as you're not a little goofy goober like I was and walk directly into his frost attack. What you're supposed to do is wait for him to charge at you, get behind him while he charges up his frost attack, and start defrosting his butthole until he's dead. And now that we have access to the Undead settlement, we can go ahead and get the Fire Clutch ring, which makes me do more fire damage at the cost of taking more damage, but I've literally never been hit before, so it doesn't matter. Also, we can grab Flynn's ring, which makes you do more damage the lower your equip load is. And finally, the Chloroform ring, which boosts your stamina regeneration. And we now have 3 of the 4 rings that we're pretty much gonna wear for the entire game. And with those and upgrading my torch another time, I head off to face the Rotten Greatwood. And this one is actually weak to fire, which made me a very happy camper and was probably another reason that I also beat him first try. I basically just sprinted in there and started whacking away at his pus sacks and his Triossi until he decided that he's had enough and knocked me down into this dark spooky hole in the ground. But thanks to my 2 whole torches, I was being very brave about it. Once I landed, I started smacking his back Ussi and other various sacks until there was nothing left but his hand Ussi, which stood no chance against the power of the oh shit. After that blunder, I summoned my inner Troy Bolton and got my head in the game until I finished him off. I was feeling pretty confident after that and went straight to the Crystal Sage, no preparation needed, and also beat him first try. I lied.
New AP, flood, water on my butt like a tub.
So I put on this pretty hat because it was the only piece of armor I had that had more magic resistance than what I already had on. And at this point in the game, the torch is still doing a pretty decent amount of damage, so it wasn't much harder than normal. You just gotta run around, smacking the shit out of him, and hopefully get lucky in the second phase when he uses his clone ninjutsu and have the real version spawn near you so you can damage him enough before the other ones get a chance to hit you. And after that win, I failed the try not to wear the coolest armor in the game challenge, and then oh golly, now I am a completely different character. Because after that, I ended up getting the Follower's Torch from the DLC and basically beat the entire game and the first DLC, and at that point I decided that the Follower's Torch was simply too good and I should just stick with the basic torch and started all over from there, so here we are. And after activating some things, grabbing some Titanite shards and killing this guy for the actual coolest armor in the game, because Bloodborne is the best Souls game and I will die on that hill, I went to the cathedral, got Lloyd's ring, which boosts your attack when your HP is full, and went to the Abyss Watchers. And I was able to beat them my very first attempt, which is pretty funny because the first time I ever played Dark Souls 3, which was my second Souls game at the time, it almost made me quit. I literally attempted this fight once or twice every single day after school for weeks, until eventually I just made a new character because I foolishly picked the Thief class, thinking classes were like way more important than they really are, and I usually like to play a rogue type character, but daggers just ain't it in this game. Anyway, I could barely beat them with a sword back then, but now these guys can't even hang with me when all I have is a stick, so hey, that's progress. I have also mastered the art of playing the second phase like a little bitch by just waiting for him to do his little sideways twirly attack and then getting a backstab.
The nigga swung his body to the side And that's how my shit was open, and he hit me. Boom, pow!
But that's when I realized that you actually cannot do a backstab with the basic torch, but a charged heavy attack will do the trick just fine. After that, I got enough large titanite to upgrade my torch again, turn this thing so I can kill this worm because I'm an early bird and whatnot. And if you thought that I couldn't kill a being basically made of fire with a stick that's on fire, then you're an absolute buffoon, a fool, a Sally Stupidhead, etc. Because I can, and I did. It did take forever because fire does not hurt fire very much. But luckily this is one of those bosses that you can just get really close to and just kind of get tucked into his nutsack and just keep smacking away to avoid most of his attacks. Before Elden Ring came along and added a counter to basically any cheesy strategy that you can think of, because if this was Elden Ring, then he would probably grow a molten dick to crush you with it or something, but luckily technology hasn't reached that point yet. The second phase is basically the same thing, except now you gotta run away every once in a while when he makes this little fire ring thing. But I totally forgot that he goes down near the end of the fight and then just explodes on you, but luckily it didn't kill me and I was able to finish him off while he just kinda pathetically swipes at you. Now that that's taken care of, we can face the scary skeleton boy in pitch black darkness, but I am being so freaking brave about it. Yet another boss that I beat first try, which isn't that impressive because this boss is pretty easy regardless of what you use. But it did actually take me like 4 or 5 attempts when I was using the follower's torch for some reason. I think it was just so good that it was giving me a lot more confidence than I should have, but I was being much more careful this time. And it's nothing special. You just smack the bracelets until they explode, and this time I chose to do damage to both of them before destroying one of them, and I opted to destroy the one on the left first because I always feel like that one's a lot harder to hit consistently than the ones on the right. But after that we get to go face a real boss, being Pontiff Sullivan. And oh geez, I forgot the doll. So now I have to head back to the cathedral so I can fight the Deacons instead, and I was nervous about this fight because you only have a certain amount of time before you get cursed and die. And I just watched an episode of House called Curse where that kid from Spy Kids gets cursed and gets the plague. That has nothing to do with this fight though. He didn't die from his curse, but I sure did. I was able to beat them on my second attempt though by just standing in the middle and getting my ass beat while I desperately try to smack the boss in the head over and over. You just gotta make sure to kill the 2 robust blue fellas so they don't heal him while you fight him. It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. The torch at this point is still doing a decent amount of damage as long as I use a charged heavy attack. After that, I attempted to get a titanite chunk from Ithriel Dungeon, and if I had $1 for every time I fell for this, I would have like $7 maybe, which is enough for like 2 or 3 McChickens in 2024. And I can't wait to tell my kids that back in my day, a McChicken was only $1 as they pay 20 bucks and a kidney for theirs. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, that made me really sad, so instead I traded a black firebomb to the birds to get the second chunk that I needed. And before I faced Pontiff, I decided to fight the dancer a little early so I can get access to some more chunks from Lothric Castle. This fight was actually kind of tough, and it was the first time I was simply not impressed by the damage my torch was doing because fuck. Good thing the dancer is sleeping in the first phase because you can kind of just stand right next to him and just keep whacking him every once in a while. And most of his attacks are pretty easy to dodge in this phase. Second phase gets a little bit more tricky-dicky. There's usually only 2 or 3 attacks that I'll try to get a hit on. One of them is when he spins around a ton of times and you could either wait until he's done and then jump in for an attack, or you could try to roll through the last couple twirls to get next to him, which is better because you can get a charged heavy attack this way. There's also another one where he jumps at you and then swings around right afterwards, and you can dodge through the swing to get a charged heavy attack, but I was being a little weenie, so I would just stand on the outside and then jump in afterwards. And also a similar one where instead of swinging, he kind of just explodes, but it's the same process. And that's basically it. Rinse and repeat that for far too long and finish the fight. Took me about 3 tries. Pontiff, on the other hand, took twice as many tries, which is like 6. Yeah, 6 is the one. And this one was pretty rough, despite me absolutely balling on him in the first phase with my parry game. And I would have used my bare hands to parry, but since I can't do backstabs and have to switch from my bare hands back to the torch, I wasn't fast enough to do a heavy charged attack, so I just used the buckler shield instead. First phase wasn't bad, but I was getting absolutely had in the second phase. I would basically just wait for him to do a jumping attack, dodge the first one, and then parry the second one. But half the time I would lose my timing and just start absolutely whiffing it. Luckily, I had enough flasks to make up for my mistakes and still made it through. Next boss on the list was Aldrich, who was very easy and I beat her first try. Probably helps that she is also weak to fire, which is what I'm all about, baby. I mostly just stayed behind her, smacking her buttsack and whatnot, and to this day, I still cannot dodge her arrow attack very well, which I probably have mentioned in like every Dark Souls 3 video ever. And despite the many comments I've gotten to try to help me, I am simply just helpless to this attack. An absolute useless sack of shit, if you will. And unfortunately, after beating her, I have to do the boss that I have been dreading this entire time, being Yhorm. And if you've already played this game, then you already know why, because what you're supposed to do is use a weapon in the room to defeat him. But if you don't use that weapon, it's gonna take you at least a couple business days to defeat him. So as you can see by my naked body, I had to get myself to do the most damage possible by taking off all my armor so Flynn's ring would boost my damage even more, and getting a shield to boost my stamina regeneration. And I also had to do this fight one hit away from death using the red Tearstone ring, since that ring boosts your damage more than Floyd's sword ring would. Fuck. And on top of that, I used this strategy I found where you only hit him in the right wrist. And at the beginning of the fight, you need to hit him about 10 times before he'll go down, and then you have to make sure to get 3 charged heavy attacks on his wrist while he's down, because that'll put him at the perfect damage threshold to be 1 hit away from going down again after he gets back up. And if you do it right, you can kind of just get him in a loop of getting up and going down over and over. I was not able to do it very well, because when he falls, sometimes his sword is in the way and you can't reach his wrist, so you kind of have to position yourself to roll over to it, which could also be a problem because you might not have enough stamina to do all 3 attacks. Hence why I also got the stamina regeneration shield to help with that problem. And even though I didn't pull the strategy off perfectly, I still got it to work a lot of the times, and I probably cut the fight time in half. But yeah, hardest fight in the game so far, by a long shot, not even close to being close. What was not the hardest fight in the game was the Dragonslayer Armor, who I beat the very first try. Which is also kind of funny because this was probably like the 3rd hardest fight when I was using the Follower's Torch, but I basically changed my whole strategy on how I fought him this time. When I fought him with the Follower's Torch, I stayed really far away and just waited for a leaping attack to counter. But this time I just stayed in his face like a real man, dodging his attacks, getting hits in when I could, and taking plenty back to my noggin in return. And like John 13 says, if you touch a brother's brim, the consequences shall be grim, so I beat him senseless. I'm also sure you noticed my still mostly naked body because I realized how much more damage you do without armor thanks to Flynn's ring, and the armor is mostly for show in these games anyway, so I had to sacrifice my fashion for some function. And after hanging out in the cum zone for a little bit, I headed up to the Twin Prince fight, which was actually pretty difficult when I was using the Follower's Torch, but this time I kicked his little tushy, especially in the first phase where I almost did it without getting hit a single time. All you really have to do is just keep dodging to his backside and give him a good smack. There's not a ton of opportunities to get a charged heavy attack, so I mostly had to use my little wimpy light attacks the whole time, except for when he teleports away and you can dodge that attack and still have time to hit him like my dad used to hit me. Maybe I should do a belt only run next time. Anyway, I went a really long time without getting hit, but alas, I took one near the end of the first phase and my ego took an even bigger one. The second phase was even harder. You basically need to do the same strategy, but now you got some little cripple guy shooting magic at you the entire time. The bigger twin is also a little bit faster and adds a couple new swings to his old combos, which would catch me off guard quite a bit. You just gotta try your best to hit the little one, since he will heal his big brother if you kill him first, which I did do it first. And then he almost caught me in an explosion, but I used my Ultra Instinct to dodge the attack at the last second. After that, you just keep beating him up, and at the end, I thought I was just going to get to beat his little cripple ass while he laid there defenseless, but unfortunately, people frown on that kind of thing, and he just kind of died on his own. And with that taken care of, we could face the last boss. This one was a doozy, and somehow only took a few minutes less than Yhorm. Probably because I'm a big fat scaredy cat and only fight him when he's either using his sword or magic, and only take pop shots on his other 2 weapons. For his sword, I just kind of roll through a couple of attacks and try to take a swing and get smacked myself if he uses the mythical 3rd swing. Magic phase is the easiest, just get hit by a ton of attacks, roll behind him for some charged heavy attacks, especially if it's the Kamehameha. The magic sword and the blast are pretty easy to dodge as well, but what's not easy to dodge is like anything in the spear phase. I actually get the shakes when this phase happens, because he can seemingly hit you from half court in the blink of an eye and literally never stops chasing you down, so it's hard as hell to heal in this phase. Also, he could heal himself, so that's great. The only attack I punish is when he does his double spin, where you can roll in on the second spin for a hit and then immediately regret your decision when you realize that you're standing in front of him in his spear phase. And for his pyromancy phase, I just run away. That's about it. Unless he throws a fireball, then I'll try to roll through that and get a hit and then just run away again. And luckily with my epic gamer skill, I was able to make it to the second phase with a whopping 1 Estus flask left. Yippee. This phase is actually a lot easier than the first one in my opinion. I usually wait for him to jump at me and then try to get a hit, and sometimes he will follow it up with a second hit, but if you're quick enough you can roll through that as well. The main attacks to punish in this phase are his lightning attacks, which he has 3 variants of. One where he throws it at you, one where he throws it on the ground, and one where he throws it in the air and it comes back down a few seconds later. All of them you can get a hit between the attacks, and the one where he throws it in the air you could actually get a charged heavy attack. You just got to get the timing down to dodge the lightning when it comes down. I usually sing the first 2 seconds of Itsy Bitsy Spider and then dodge the attack. I also ended up having to use this random healing item that I had that brought me back to max health, because I definitely would have died without that, but yeah, that's basically it. Thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it this far. Let me know what challenge I should do next in what game, and have a great rest of your day. Peace.